very well.
Yeah, well, I can't see you very well either. That's a great lead in to our discussion this morning about play and playfulness.
Well, you know what? I put this on, Cameron. You know the story behind this?
I do not.
So, one of the
Okay.
things my kids and I love to do is go to thrift stores. And we don't buy much. I mean, it's not a whole
Yeah.
lot to buy. We try to completely ignore the underwear and bra section, at the thrift store for obvious reasons. But if
Sure.
we do find a pair of super giant underwear, we will hold it up and say, "Hey, look," just to mess with each other. But we found this at a thrift store, right? One of my kids found this at a thrift store
Yeah.
for $10, right? And they came walking around the corner. As you can imagine, it was Jack. He's 6'4". He comes walking around the corner wearing this big dumb Sasquatch head. Above the hole, everybody can see him. And me and all my kids just start laughing, right? We're like, "How much is it?" He's like, "It's like $10, right?" So we take it up to the front, and they're fighting over who gets to wear it because it's just silly, right? Well, as
Hmm.
we get ready to check
Yeah.
out, the lady says, "It's only $10." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm thinking it would be great if you would put it on because I'll really,
You got
if
oh,
you put it on, I really will buy it. But I'm not so sure unless you put it on." And she said, "I'm not putting that thing on." And I said, "It's for the kids. This is a thrift store. I know this. You're going to donate. Don't take that $10 out of those kids' pockets." And my kids are just grinning from ear to ear as this thing's going. So this sweet old lady slips it on her head, and the whole place erupts in laughter, right? And she takes it off so
oh my
fast,
goodness.
and she's got a big old grin, and my kids are all laughing, and it's just become this. It's out in my garage, and the kids will stick it on periodically. They take it to high school football games all the time, and it's just it's there's nothing. It's just silly. It's just good, clean, silly fun, right? To have a big giant Sasquatch head you can stick on whenever you want.
Yeah.
But it's a great example
That's
of
fantastic.
it's just a silly little simple example of what I call making unique memories for the kids, right? And
Yeah.
teaching them the kind of the joy of playfulness and how you can just brighten not only your own lives but other people's lives by being a little bit risky. I mean, it was probably, I don't know how appropriate it was for me to say, "Hey, if you'll put it on, I'll especially buy it." And talking this sweet lady who didn't want to put it on her head into putting it on her head.
Hmm.
So
That's let me the neat thing about that is now she has a memory too. And she's going to tell her family. She's probably recording a video right now talking to a friend of hers about this time some character came in and convinced her to put on a Sasquatch head in order to buy it. That convincing and inviting others to play, even though you don't have a relationship with that lady, you've made a connection. And one of my favorite people in the world, her name is Tina. And honestly, 10, 12 years ago, she wasn't my favorite person because she was kind of pushy, or I'll say
yeah,
assertive. She was always talking to my wife, talking my wife into doing things. And I'd just be like, "Man, why'd you do that?" And she's like, "Well, Tina said, it was I wasn't going to, but Tina made it sound like it was going to be so much fun, and the next thing I knew, X, right?"
right.
And over the years, over the decade of knowing her, I kind of started to really value how she pulls not just herself into fun and play, but she pulls other people, including my family. And one of the more recent examples is sledding. My wife was like, "I don't want to go sledding. It's not going to be fun." And, I don't like the cold. So sledding to me is just misery. But Tina's like, "Oh, it'll be great." And so she's like, we have this great place to go. It'll be great. And so I'm like, you know what, Tina, she gets us to do things that we normally wouldn't do that are fun and playful. So we go out, and it was a road that had been scraped with just the perfect amount of ice on top. And it was a good slope and no traffic because it's up in Idaho City. And it was so much fun. I have a video, I'll send it to you, of my son and I sledding down this thing, and I got really good. I mean, think of my math inertia, putting my, at the time, 6, 7-year-old son, he was 6 at the time, on top of me, and I am having him film or video it, and we get going, and we go off, and we just keep going, and we smack a tree, and he smacks a tree with his face. That, and I'm like, you smashed your face with the tree. And he's talking about it. And we still talk about this thing
Right.
that we wouldn't have done otherwise if it hadn't been for Tina, where, yeah, was it risky? Sure. Yeah. But life is risk, right? We have the greatest memory of him just booking down this road, going off the side and smacking a tree with his face and breaking a tree in the middle of wintertime. And the invitation of asking people to play and getting them to be playful, there's so much value there. And I love Tina for that. And now whenever she's like, let's do this, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Because before, years ago, I would have been like, nah, I'm not into it. Now I'm like, hey, if Tina thinks it's going to be fun, it's going to be fun. We're going to have memories, even if it doesn't go well.
Right. And I
So,
think that the term you use there that I love so much is memories, right?
yeah.
I mean, life can get monotonous, right? School, work, church, school, work, church, right? And there has to be moments that we break it up, right? And the more silly and we can weave in playfulness and silliness into these things if we've got our eyes open. It just
Yeah.
takes over.
You're excellent at that. I don't think that's a talent I have, but remember back when we were in the same office and we worked together? And I can't remember why you did it. So all of a sudden, I remember sitting in my chair and I would look up to think, and I look up and there's a sign that says nether regions, right? You had taped that word, and that still brings me joy. So why in the world did you tape that above my desk? I can't
You know
remember.
what? It was during the winter time. I remember this because me and my kids had a snowball fight, which if it snows, there is a snowball fight. And my rule, and this goes back to what you said, my rule is if it's legal, moral, ethical, and nobody gets hurt too bad, we're going to do it, right? Because
Yeah.
somebody's going to get hurt occasionally, but that's a memory too, like your son smashing his face, right? I mean, not too bad.
Yep.
He got hurt, but not too bad. So, but
That's
it
right.
creates these memories, right? And so, my kids, it was me against all the kids, and I'm super accurate, so they know this is going to be a battle because I'm plunking my kids with snowballs, right? It toughens them up, they may get a little, you know, a little scrub burn of redness on their face from a snowball, right? And my wife wasn't a fan of this either. She's like, you can't be so rough with the kids. I'm like, they're rough with me. Come on. They're throwing snowballs. Yeah, but you're accurate. You can throw a snowball 60 miles an hour. They can't do that. I'm like, hey, this is war. The whole point is just to create these memories, right? And my
Right.
kids got pretty creative and they started designing packages of, they would throw some snowballs up high and the other ones would try to hit, like, to get my attention up, or they were trying to create diversions because they knew straight on they weren't winning this
Yeah.
battle, right? Me against 6 kids. They weren't winning if they didn't do something pretty sneaky. And they got my attention. One of the kids was over here and one of the kids was over, and I'm trying to watch them all. And Chloe, my little girl at the time, she was probably 7 or 8, really young. She hit me right in the nether regions. I use that term because I don't want to say exactly where she hit me. But if I tell you I doubled over in pain and fell to the ground and had to be iced down with some peas, you'll know exactly where she hit me. But when I told you the story, I said nether regions, and that word tipped you into some kind of silliness. And I don't know if you'd ever heard it before, right?
I no. I had never heard that referencing, you know, I grew up all proper. It was private parts, right? If you weren't going to get specific. And you're hitting me with nether regions. Oh my
Well,
goodness. It's still
when I
funny. It's a funny way to
when I
refer to
saw
that.
you start to giggle, I thought that's something that really got him going. How can I, and my
Yeah.
mind works like this. I don't do 90% of the stuff I say because you know,
Right.
but it doesn't mean I don't think it and laugh, right? And so I thought, how can I present this nether regions to him more frequently? And I thought, I've seen you lean back and think before. And
Yeah.
I don't know, you may not remember it as clearly as I do, but I printed off a picture of a belt, and below the belt was the word nether regions. And
Oh,
that might be why it tipped you. So you remember that now?
that's right. Now I totally do remember that. Oh my goodness. And that was in a work environment.
Right.
We were getting paid to work, Kyle. You were the office manager. You were supposed to keep us all, nose to the grindstone. And you made that place so much fun. And we got so much done. I don't think anyone dreaded coming to work. And the jobs that, I mean, Jesse and John and that they would have to do and the people they'd have to deal with, you turned it into a game. You turned it into fun.
Yeah. Well,
I remember one time it got excited because someone was being nasty on the phone, and I was like, "Why are they excited?"
yeah. You know what? It really, I think you know this, and I think most people know this. We're all going to face some challenging things in our lives, right? And I
Yeah.
heard a guy one time say, he was telling a story, and it really impacted me, and you can tell. He said, when you look back on events in your life, a lot of times you smile, even when events were hard. You look back on when you had a
That's
flat tire on the freeway in rush hour traffic, and you tell somebody, and you're smiling when you
mhm.
tell the story, right? And he said, if you
Yeah.
can smile when you tell the story later, how can you figure out a way to smile when the event is happening real time? And he posed
Ah.
that question. And I thought to myself, and it reminded me of my father, who had taught me a lesson along similar lines when I was a kid. I used to live in Dallas, and we would drive down to Beaumont, which is down on the coast of Texas, 300 miles away. And back then,
Yeah.
this is in the late 70s, it was a 6-hour drive in the summer heat of Texas, right? And we had
Oh.
air conditioning in our car that
Oh.
my dad called 455 air conditioning, which is four,
That's right. We had the
four
same.
windows down, 55 miles an hour, right? That was the speed limit. You couldn't go past that in
Yeah.
Texas in the late 70s. We had a station wagon that would break down every year halfway. We'd start the drive and we'd break down. And after about the third or fourth time, and my uncle Mike, who lived in Beaumont, would drive up sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours. We'd have to wait on the side of the road in Texas heat while he drove up.
Ugh.
He was a mechanic. He would fix our car with, duct tape and baling wire. And we would drive down to Beaumont, and then we would drive home, right? And so every year we'd break down. Every year we would break down. And after the third or fourth time, I asked my dad, why do we keep doing this? We're going to break down. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And my dad said, he smiled really big and he said, you know what, Kyle? It's just a normal trip until something goes wrong. Then it's an adventure.
Oh, that's
And what I
great.
remember, I don't remember. Here's what's interesting. I don't remember being in Beaumont with family. I remember what we
Yeah.
did as brothers when we broke down. I remember one
Huh.
time we went fishing illegally. on somebody's
Okay.
pond and caught a bunch of stuff and got chased off. Another time, we had a cow pie fight in the field.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, a cow pie is not a pie. It's a dropping from a cow's rear
Yeah,
end that happens to go flat, dries out, and then they become sometimes frisbee uh,
yeah.
like, and you can huck a cow
And if they're
pie.
dry enough, they just explode when they hit your brother, right? So, yeah,
Yeah. If they're not dry enough, then you get a
you
different
can't really pick them
reaction.
up. You avoid those.
Oh, that's right. You don't want to throw them. The dry ones, though, they're not
Another
bad.
time, we were on the side of the road, and my dad looked over, and probably 200-300 yards away, there was a big bunch of cows. And my dad said, "Watch this,"
Yeah.
and he went, "Mrrr," and the cows looked up, and we were like, "So?" He's like, "Watch." "Mrrr," and he kept mooing, and they started coming towards him. Next thing you know, there was 200 cows lined up on the fence. He had called them over, right? Now,
The cow
think about
whisperer.
this. This is what I remember, right? I remember when things went wrong, right?
Hmm.
When life goes wrong or when things go out of order, then they're an adventure. Then you got a whole new set of memories, right?
You
That
know,
stick with you.
isn't that what play is? Is just artificially creating things that go wrong? I mean, from with sports, you have to, for basketball, for me, you have to get this ball through the hoop and they're going to try and stop you. So you have adversary and you have opposition. Well, if you think about it, that's kind of stupid, but it's fun, and overcoming it with a team creates a cohesion. And some of the guys on my basketball team from high school, I still have such fond memories of them and doing things together and overcoming things with them,
Right.
right? And then talking about trips, one of our trips, my mom was just amazing at taking us on these trips. And one time we're driving in a Wagoneer uh, from Boise. We're headed to Salt Lake, and uh, all of a sudden the accelerator pedal stops working, and the engine runs, but we pull off on an exit. And my recollection, I think I was maybe 10, maybe 9 years old, and we pop the hood, and we're just doing stuff, and if you move a certain part of the engine, it accelerates. And it's like, well, so you push the pedal, nothing happens, but if you move this thing inside underneath the hood, the engine revs up. So we took off all of our shoelaces and we tied it to that thing and we fed it through the window, and it was really hard to pull. I remember it was really tough to pull and it would dig into your hands. And so we took a pair of jeans from a suitcase, tied the shoelaces around the pair of jeans that was folded up so that you had something substantial to hold, and we would pull that to accelerate. So my mom's driving downtown Salt Lake, giving instructions to the person in the back
Hmm.
on accelerating and slowing down. We got to Salt Lake, and my cousin ended up super gluing the thing back together from a spare part that he pulled out of a junkyard. And but what a great memory of, oh, here's the other thing. So we're driving, right? We're just trying to this out on the freeway way before we get to Salt Lake. And it's like we get up to 65 or whatever it was, and all of a sudden the hood of the Wagoneer flaps up and you can't see anything because we hadn't latched it because had a shoelace
Right,
going through
right.
it. So panic situation, pull over, put the hood down, and then the person in the back is all okay, and my mom's like, more gas, all polite, little faster. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. 200 miles into Salt Lake that way.
It's and we wouldn't think of that as play, right? However, because a lot of what we're trying to talk about here, you and I, is connection with people, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
and one of the ways to do that is by creating memories together that I mean, you'll never forget that, right? You'll never
Oh yeah.
forget that. And it may not have been, you may not have been smiling when it happened, but you're telling me the story and you got the biggest grin you've ever had on your face, right? And
Right.
it's, you know, we've decided as a family that, and we've kind of, what my dad said, when it's just life until something goes wrong, then it's an adventure. We've really taken that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll be doing stuff and something will go wrong. And one of my kids will say,
Yeah.
hey, now it's an adventure. You never know what's going to happen, right? And it takes what can be occasions where you might get stressed out or angry or frustrated, and you realize in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be something we talk about in the future, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be a story we share with other people. This is going to be a moment that connects us as a family, right? Now, it can connect us because we're angry and agitated and mad, right?
Yep.
And maybe that doesn't connect us. Maybe that creates a separation, right? But if we take
Sure.
the right spirit into these things, in a lot of cases, a lot of things that are going wrong end up being playful and end up being play, right? And end up creating that connection with our kids. And I think as parents, that's the thing we've got to guard ourselves against is
Mm-hmm.
there are moments that are going to be stressful and frustrating and agitate you and have an ability to create a wedge between you and your kids, right? That
Yeah.
same moment can create a connection, a super powerful, you know, more gas. I'll never be able to think about how ludicrous is that, more gas, right? I'll never be able to think about
Yeah.
that. I'll never be able to see a Wagoneer again and not think more gas now, right? And the fact that you guys
Right.
made this
Yeah.
a wonderful connection as a family, right? And your mom didn't freak out. She didn't scream and yell and
Nope.
go right. And that's really what can happen to us as parents, right? It can it can it can create something for us that creates a wedge, right? Or we can look at it
Mm-hmm.
in a certain way, and it can create a memory. You're right, even a good memory.
And you know, it by being playful or doing something that is purely play can also help with depression and anxiety. And I started doing adventures, and we called them adventures with my son back when he was suicidal, and he was just in the depths. And I at the time I was like, what can I do to distract him? And getting him out of the environment, just a change in environment, usually would help him start to use the other tools that he had at his disposal that he'd been learning to help him live life. And this one time, it was snowing really, really hard. This was a few years ago, and we go and we're driving around, and we drive by Hobby Lobby over on Fairview, and the snowflakes are huge, right? Beautiful snowflakes. And we're driving, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see this guy running, and he's running so fast. He's either running away from something or he's running to something,
Right.
right? Well, 2 minutes later, probably 10 cop cars all over the neighborhood. So my son and I have an adventure, and we go find him because we had seen him. All the cop cars show up, and what was weird is it. We had. I'll at some point I'll have him record the story and I'll send it to you because it was so much fun. We ended up finding the guy. He got into a garage, and then all the cops' cars are parked, and all of the cops are gone. We don't know where they are, but their cars are all over. Their lights are on, but no one's around. And we're like, we know where the guy is. Anyway, we finally found him, helped, told the police, talked to him for a little bit. And the funny thing is, they weren't looking for the guy. They were there for something else completely. But how much fun did we have trying to find him? And then we came home, and the way we told the story to my wife was as if we just helped the police find a criminal and arrest him,
Right.
because we didn't share certain details. And Hyatt and I, we love to tell a story where we don't lie at all. Everything we say is
Yeah.
true, but you structure it in a way that it makes it sound like it's totally different than the reality. And that was a lot of fun. We talk about that adventure all the time. Another time, this one I don't know if I should share.
You have
So my son
to now, Cameron.
So he's suicidal. He wants to kill himself. And so I say, well, why don't we go shooting?
Dark.
So we go to a gun range.
Dark.
And yeah, because it's funny, right? And so he's like, what? I was like, well, if you're having intrusive thoughts about suicide, let's go shooting. And I actually told him, I was like, I'm going to take you somewhere. So this is how I set it up. I was like, okay, you're in the depths. We're going to go somewhere and I will pay you $100 if you can figure out where we're going before we get there. And so we're driving, and this is something we've done. Hyatt and I have been, we've gone through some pretty substantial handgun training on how to shoot, and it's something we love to do. So we're driving. We have not done it in Boise ever. And so I'm driving to this place, a gun range, and all of a sudden he goes, we're going to a gun shop. Because he knows me.
Yeah.
He knows how weird my sense of humor is. I was like, you're close. And we get to the gun range and he's ecstatic. So we go in and totally shifts everything, right? That playful before the event pulls him out, and we go shooting. Now, like I said, that's not a story I can normally share because people would freak out. You took someone who's suicidal and gave him a gun. Well, not like that.
Right.
I was playful, and we went to a gun shop that happened to have a gun range. And now that he was safe, we went shooting. And talk about trust engendering, right? Because he knows that he can trust me to tell me, hey, I'm not doing well. And what am I going to do? Am I going to flee from that, or I'm going to embrace him and say, okay, well, let's go play. Let's go have an adventure.
What a great example of you knowing, I think play creates a world where you know them and they know you. Right?
Yeah.
And that creates the connection you're talking about, right? Because you're not some nebulous individual that they don't really know, right? Because you play and because you talk and because you do things, they can see your strategy and they can see, right? I was talking to my older son. I took him to the airport yesterday. He and his wife went to San Diego for fun.
Oh,
and
cool.
We were going to pick up his wife at work and then go straight to the airport. And he said to me that he appreciated how I didn't hide my flaws from him. Right?
Yeah.
And he said, because he said, I wonder that if some parents want to be so perfect that their kids are afraid or see their parents as thinking they're perfect and know they can't be perfect, and they don't connect with them. Right? Because I've seen you've come to me and I've seen your flaws. You've apologized to me. You've said, I messed that up. And he said, it made me realize you're trying to figure stuff out too. And it connected me with you on a deeper level, because I realized I don't have to be perfect as a human or a parent either. Right? And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? And I love what you did there. Hey, buddy. I love what you did with him, which is you talk about changing the environment, right? And I think that's a lot of that. That's what play is, right? That's what playfulness is. And you can weave those into a lot of things, right? Go somewhere you haven't gone before, or surprise them with where you're going. That's all, right? Or, my kids and I, this, we have marshmallow guns that we create that you put a marshmallow in and you blow it and it shoots. And they're pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And we like to go do drive-by shootings, right? Now this is going to sound dark too. And
Yeah.
we've discovered that if you drive through a neighborhood, or in our case, we like to drive through the Village, which is a really high-end outdoor shop,
Yeah.
and we roll through slowly, and we roll the windows down, and we'll shoot a marshmallow above someone's head, right? And if they
Get their attention.
smile, then we just pepper them with marshmallows. And it's the funniest thing you've ever seen. And they have the greatest
Yeah.
reactions, right? There's other people, you shoot a marshmallow above their head and they get angry, right? And we move on to the next
Yep.
group of people, right? But we don't do it very often, but occasionally the kids will just come to me and say, I think it's time we do some drive-by shootings, Dad, right? And we're like, okay, let's get the marshmallow guns out. But
Oh, that's
it's
funny.
it's changing the environment, right? And not being afraid to do something that's a little outside the norm, right?
Mhm.
Because what happens is it creates the giggles, it creates the silliness, it creates, right? That's when you start to, that's when
Yep.
play becomes, and then when you start to see your own kids do it. One of the things I do with my kids, I've always done this, is when I'm driving and they're in the passenger side, and I'm driving, and here in Boise we have a lot of sprinklers that shoot all over the place. Sometimes in
Oh yeah. No one knows how to get them to just stay on the lawn. They're
they're
always
always
getting into
shooting in
the
the street.
streets.
And so my kids they know now that if there's a sprinkler shooting into the street, I'm going to roll down their window and lock it and swerve and hose them down, right? They know this. So they'll be walking
Yeah.
and they'll hold the button, or, you know, well,
Yeah. They'll get the kill switch
yeah,
so that you
for
can't
years
roll it
I've
down.
done this and they know it, right? Well, I was riding with my son Ricky recently. He's got his license, he's driving now. And we're cruising along down through a neighborhood. And all of a sudden I glance over at him, he's grinning. And I'm like, what is he grinning about? And sure enough, the car swerves and I get hosed by a water sprinkler, right? And he has the biggest grin you've ever seen on his face. And I said, you
Oh,
sorry
that is
little son of
great.
a gun. He's like, I want to do that to my kids too. Right. But I got you. And he couldn't
Yeah.
wait to tell his brothers and sister, right?
That he
That he
got his
got his
dad.
dad,
Yeah.
right? But it's something that's branded into his brain now, that he tells everybody he sees, he's so excited that he finally got his dad back for hosing him down all those years, you know. But it's really simple little stuff like that that doesn't take much, right? It doesn't. The other thing that we do is we have a slide whistle in one of our cars, and one of the kids will pull it out and beep as we drive by people, and they'll look. You know, you just don't hear that. Um,
Yeah. From like the Looney
yeah,
Tune, like Tom and Jerry type of, just the sound effects from, oh my
yeah.
goodness. Okay.
And another thing we do is we go get ice cream cones. And we've
Hmm.
found out it's very funny if you're licking your ice cream cone and you see other people in cars and they see you, you tip it at them, right? Like, right? And people,
Gotcha. Kind of like a toast, except with an ice cream cone.
yeah. So the whole car, we're all driving, licking our ice cream cones, and we're tipping them at people, right? Well, we've had other kids in the car, friends, and we've told them. Chloe said, "Hey, can we get ice cream cones?" I'm like, "Sure." So we'll go get ice cream cones, and she'll tell her friends, "Listen, you have to tip your ice cream cone at people." They're like, "What? What are you talking about?" And we start doing it, and it's just they giggle, the whole family, right? And we
Yeah.
got 10 or 15 different families now that are all tipping their
All
ice cream.
tipping.
Yeah. Because it's silly, it's simple, it's
Oh, that's
easy,
great.
it creates memories, it's funny, right? It's the
Yeah.
little simple things.
We've done the smile game.
There you go.
We'll go to the store, and we have 8 kids, and if we're all together, man, it looks like,
Draws attention.
they let us out of the zoo for a little bit
Mhm.
or something. But we'll do points. And so what you do is you start off and you get 1 point if you can get someone to head bop you back. And so you do a head bop. If they head bop you, then you smile. If they smile, then you say hey. If they say hey, so you get 1 point, 3 points, and then 5 points if you can get them to
Right.
smile or say hi. Sorry, and we call it the smile game. And what's hilarious is we'll get kind of spread out, and the first person that they come in as the person's walking towards the member of the family, head bop, they'll reply head bop, smile, smile. Maybe they won't say hi back. But then there's another family member just a little bit further doing the same thing, smile, head bop. And so by the time this person gets down the aisle, there's like 10 people doing a head bop, a smile. Hey, how's it going? And it's funny to see them change. Their whole countenance changes. They stop being, some of them, they start off rigid. And by the time they get down the aisle where they've just had a head bop from a 5-year-old kid after having an adult do it, they're just like loose,
Right.
It's like, okay, life is over. And that's our goal, is to bring some joy to them. And it's fun because it's absurd. It is absurd. Something else. I got my son Hyatt. He knows how to play. We will go to the store and he will set up things. So he, Hyatt and I, we can't handle milk. So we have these little lactase pills that we'll take if we're going to have ice cream. Cause ice cream is enjoyable until it's not, right? So we take the lactase and we're fine. Well, it's a very distinct pill, and he'll go and he'll stick it somewhere in the store. That's absurd. And then 2 days later, when he's with his friends, he'll just casually go up and he'll, do this, nothing in his hands, go up, reach where no one else can get to, pull down this pill, stick it in his mouth, and eat it in front of his friends. Just just play. So much fun. One other story about, you talked about the monotony of work, church, school, work, church, school. Mm-hmm. Perception wise, people don't realize I'm actually kind of playful. I'm very polite. And so I usually hold back my play until it's in a setting where people know me and I'm not going to offend.
Right.
Because I would hate to offend somebody. Right. Well, I'll tell you about my Aunt Lorraine had been ill for just a few months, and she passed away on last Sunday, Monday morning, and got the text from my cousin. And after church, my daughter was being set apart for a new calling. And the person, doing the setting apart, he commented, he goes, "Hey, it's good to have the Watsons here. We don't know, because in the last month, we had heart surgery for Hannah, tonsillectomy for Sarah, and I think that's kind of it. So pretty mild month in the last 30 days for us." And he was just commenting on how great it is to have the Watsons there. And it's like, yeah. And he goes, "We never know who's going to be able to come to church." And I was like, "Yeah, that's true." And he goes, "Yeah, the Watsons. Well, at least everyone's alive." I couldn't help myself. And I said, "Well, except for Lorraine, who had just died that morning." And this poor gentleman, what, he doesn't get my morbid, dark sense of humor, but oh boy, did my kids love that. My daughter, Rachel, she looks at me. She gets this expression like, "He said it out loud. Yeah. That's an inside thought." Right. Normally you share that later, but that playfulness, that all of a sudden it took something that could have been drawing us down. The fact that my Aunt Lorraine, she's a second grandma to my kids. My mom's mom died, or my wife's mom passed away when we were first married. So none of my kids got to know her on earth. They've just gotten to know her by memories and stories. Right. But my Aunt Lorraine would come up every year and spend time at our house. We even went on a cruise with her. And my daughters would actually go visit her on their own, contact her on her own. And so there's this really intimate relationship with this person who passed away. And it could have been sad and depressing that she died. And I turned it into levity. Right. Now, was it offensive? it was risky on my end, but I went there anyway. And so now the death of my aunt, which is sad on some parts because we're not going to see her here in mortality anymore, but it's kind of fun. It has a funny story about the day that she passed away, similar to when I got the cancer diagnosis. And we told the story about the square footage not being charged by the square foot for the. But the other side of it is, I was talking on the phone. I just got the diagnosis that I had cancer. You and John were talking behind me about how I'm always happy. And then one of you, I think maybe John said, or I don't know who said, well, nothing bad ever happens to Cameron.
Yeah.
And the other one says, oh, so bad stuff happens to Cameron. He's just okay with it. And I took the opportunity to swivel around and say, yeah, for example, I just found out I had cancer and I'm smiling. And watching you two, it just shut the conversation down. That was so fun to take something awful and just mock it a little bit and make it so that you two didn't know what to say. And I got so much joy out of that. I started dropping it into conversations. So I'd be meeting with people and I'd be like, well, how am I doing? I'm doing pretty good. I just found out I have cancer. And just watching crickets, no reaction. What are they supposed to say?
Right.
It was so fun.
Well,
so inappropriate.
what you're talking about there is we're always looking. I think we're always looking for ways to create comedy and silliness in our family.
Yeah.
But some of it is you can't do, right? We just don't do it. For instance, my kids know that if they walk in front of my car and I'm sitting in it, I'm honking and they're jumping. That's just what's going to happen. Okay. And they're always baiting their friends to walk in front of the car because they know if their friends walk in front of the car, I'm going to honk and their friends are going to jump. Right. And so, it's common for us now. I rolled up to drop my son off at the airport. And in front of me was an older couple with a younger couple kind of hugging goodbye at the airport, right in front of my car. And Alex says, I know what you're thinking. I said, these people are in such a sweet moment of just hugging each other. But if I honk, they would jump out of their skin right now. And he laughed and I laughed. We don't do it.
And you didn't even have
to do it. But because you've created this atmosphere of let's look for ways to have fun. Let's find ways to have fun. But you don't always have to do it to still enjoy the fun, right? And so,
yeah.
So I think sometimes creating that atmosphere where, and occasionally your kids are going to push it too far because they're kids and they don't know yet. And that's when
they haven't discovered.
Right. And that's when you pull them to the side and you say, hey, listen, there's some parameters, right? And you shouldn't be shocked or upset at them. You should say, hey, listen, let's talk about the parameters, right? For instance, when it snows here in Boise, I'm super accurate. For some reason, I've always been accurate thrower. And I will throw a snowball and hit the wall, 10 feet in front of a couple. And they'll look at me and I'll say, I could have hit you if I wanted to. And I'll grin, right? Sometimes they grin back and it's funny. My kids get a kick out of it. Sometimes they don't grin back. Either way, we're laughing. I didn't hit anybody, right? But it's a chance for us to enjoy the silliness of it, right? But there's parameters to what we're doing here, and again, those are the parameters you start to learn. But you're right. Sometimes the funniest things are when you get the wrong or a weird reaction, and your kids almost expect. My kids now, a lot of stores have these rewards programs. And you check out and they say, hey, are you a member of our rewards program? And I commonly say, I'm not really motivated by rewards. I'm really more motivated by the fear of pain and suffering. So if you have a pain and suffering program, I'd sign up for that. And I get all kinds of reactions. And my kids almost expect it now, and they're watching, right? Either way,
Yeah.
whether I get a smile or somebody that's so uncomfortable it's not even funny, they have this grin on their faces, right? And I've
Yeah.
caught them starting to do it now too, right? Or are you part of our loyalty program? Well, I'm not that loyal. I shop all over town. I'm not sure how that makes any sense, right?
I'm not ready for that type of level of commitment,
That's
frankly.
what I'm going to start saying.
I think you're a nice person, but I just don't feel the connection.
I'm not ready for that type of commitment. I love that. And that's going to go in my Rolodex of things to say now, right? Because it's a perfect thing to
Yeah.
say. But yeah, the whole
Yeah.
point is the levity, right? I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
frankly, I'm really grateful for, and I think you're probably here too, right? You've faced some things with your kids, that have made you realize some things don't matter that much, right? And losing their
Yeah.
mom, I think my kids and I too have realized some of the things we thought were important or really mattered, man, they don't matter at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean,
Hmm.
and some of the things that
Yeah.
used to upset us or bother my kids, man, it just falls right off of them now because they know what
Yep.
real, right? They know what's real and what's not real, right? And so a lot of times we can
Yeah.
almost use, we're all going to face tragedy and difficulty and pain, right? And the ability to
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, listen, we're all going to face that. How do we handle it, right? How do we go through these things, right? Can we, we're all going to face them. Is it going to destroy us, or are we going to create memories? Are we going to create a world where we can thrive, right? Where when you get the cancer diagnosis, you can smile, or you can use it to put if it makes you smile, put keep people in uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
positions, right?
Oh, and I taught my kids to use it all the time. And it took something tragic in our
Sure.
family, hey, dad got cancer, and turned it into the longest running joke you can imagine. Because each kid, when they were late with their homework, I was like, hey, go to your teacher and say, hey, can I turn this in late? My dad got diagnosed with
Yeah.
cancer. And they're like, you got diagnosed with cancer like a year ago. I was like, don't tell them that detail. Just say, can I turn this paper in late? My dad got diagnosed with cancer. And, you know, they did it. And the other thing I would do is if they were nervous about something, because sometimes the teachers would pressure them into doing things that we didn't want them to do, or they didn't want to do, or they didn't feel confident on their own. So I would write them a note that would say, if you have any questions, please contact me. And then I would put my number on it and sign it. And I said, just take it. And if they give you any pushback, just hand them the
Yeah.
note. They're not going to ever call me. I have only had one teacher call me, one rugby coach, and she was awesome. The fact that she actually called me because it was that important to
Yeah.
her, she was fantastic. And that was for my daughter, Rebecca. So we were not going to let Rebecca play rugby. We didn't know why at the time, but it was like, boy, she should not play. But she wanted to play. She wanted to play 16s or whatever. Sevens.
Yeah.
She was playing sevens and she won 14s or
Yeah.
whatever. She got a blessing and she was like, I don't think I'm supposed to play. I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't. She goes, but how am I going to tell my coach? I was like, give her my number. Here you go.
Right.
And she did. And the rugby coach called me and I was able to just say, oh, yeah, we made the decision. I'm not going to go into detail, but she's not going to play rugby this time.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with the program. And thank you so much for calling. And then the coach is like, well, what can we do?
Right.
What can I do? Can she? And that rugby coach was awesome. But that play of having it be, use the stuff that life's given you to make things awesome. And another story, my daughter Elizabeth, she she missed a deadline for a scholarship for college. And she was like, is there any way that I can apply for this scholarship? And I'm probably getting all the details wrong, but they're like, probably not. I mean, what could possibly justify it? And she showed me the document she wrote and the picture she included. It was from when she broke her back from a car accident. She included Hannah's heart surgery. She included my wife's 7 surgeries. She included my misdiagnosis of a lung abscess that looked like cancer. She included a whole list. And she goes, since you asked.
Yeah.
And she went through. And they were like, oh, yeah, you can apply for the scholarship. I love it because it makes them realize there's actually value that you get from it, whether it's humor or just to help people realize that, hey, we didn't want to not participate. We just had other things going
Right.
on. But we're okay. We're fine. And it's rather funny, the number of things that we get to use for joy and for good.
Right. Well, and you're talking about just, I mean, it's a weaving in of I've got some friends who are very stoic. I'll call them stoic. And I'm not sure, a lot of the things that you and I have talked about, that they would actually try because they are stoic. Right? So here's my question for you. Because I'm not that guy.
Okay.
I'm a big goofball, right?
Yeah.
Let's discuss, and you got some stoicism to you, right? You can.
Oh yeah.
You can.
I'm out where people think I am like suit and tie, not funny, because I do have that presence.
Okay, and I don't. Yeah. So I obviously am coming at this from how would if you want to present to the world your stoicism, and there are people that do that. That's okay. Mm-hmm. They need to, right? They have specific duties that require them to be that way. How do you import, playfulness or play if it's not your natural desire to just be a big goofball with your kids, right? I mean, because I'm sure there are people out there who are saying these guys are a couple of idiots, goofballs, and I'm not gonna go into Walmart and put googly eyes on Pampers to make my kids laugh,
That's
right?
funny.
And, and we've done that too, by the way, and took pictures. Hilarious, because we even got caught by an employee one time in Walmart doing it, and we said sorry, and she's like, "No, I think it's funny. Keep doing it." Right? And people that we knew later on, we'd tell them the story, and they say, "I saw those googly eyes on," right? But there are those individuals who will not. They're not doing that. Right? How can they, as dads or moms, import play or create that world for their kids where they can experience those joys and get the connection that play can bring with it? What do you think?
Okay, so this is going to sound self-serving, and I wasn't planning to go here, but this is such a perfect setup. For those who aren't naturally goofball-y, play organized games that have rules. And whether that's a board game, a card game, or Snapshot Capture, a game that we're writing right now just for this whole purpose. Right. And so let me tell the story again. So my son Hyatt, going through awful depression and anxiety, and he starts playing this game called Senior Assassin, where you take a dinosaur, and to assassinate the other person, you just touch them with the dinosaur. And they started getting all creative, and it formed. His attitude and his life got substantially better. His best friend today, he bonded with that person through a game. And it was organized, it had rules. So stoic people like myself, we enjoy knowing where the boundaries are, where they start and end. And what's great about Snapshot Capture is it allows you to do the same type of thing where you can participate in a game where you form the same memories as other people, but you don't have to extend outside of something that is norm because it's a game. So playing a game like Snapshot Capture allows you to do things that you normally wouldn't do because it's part of a recognized, it's official, you're playing a game. In the same way, you wouldn't normally run down a field throwing a ball up randomly without a goal.
Right.
This gives you a goal that makes it okay to not be in your typical stoicism. For me, the answer has shifted from me. So now I play games with the kids, and there's a game that we love. We call it Whoop, but the actual name of the game is Oh Hell.
Okay.
Okay. We changed the name because
Yeah.
we want our kids to learn, proper stuff according to the Watsons, and it's fun. When things go wrong, the instead of saying "oh hell," you go "oh," right? The game itself allows you opportunities to make connections with people in a framework that a stoic person like myself can enjoy. Publicly, people still think that I am stoic because I like wearing collared shirts.
Right.
I like wearing a suit and tie. If I had my way, I'd be in a suit and tie almost every day. I like
Right.
it. Now, it doesn't work right now in society, but with my family, they've seen a lot. I didn't realize this early on, Kyle, but my older kids didn't realize I had a sense of humor until they were adults because I never showed them because I was stoic and you got to see it because you're such a goofball. I could be a little bit more goofy or let things out and it was okay. And then as my older kids got old, my wife has seen it. By the way, my wife said this to me. She goes, "Hey, Cameron, when we got married, I had just accepted the fact that I was going to marry someone that didn't have a sense of humor."
Wow.
And she's like, "I'm so glad I was wrong." Just because I was stoic. Right? Now, playing a game, whether it's snapshot capture, which will be done by the end of this month, we're going into testing. We're having our dramatic demonstration in October.
Good.
We're going to Rexburg in 2 weeks, where we're going to Rexburg Experience, and we're going to have people sign up for the pre-launch of snapshot capture, where they'll get an assignment that they have to go capture that person by taking a selfie of themselves with them in the background.
Gotcha.
And that starts. And we're doing that to create connection.
Right.
Because that play, that shared goal, that overcoming a challenge, even though it's artificially created, whether it's playing Whoop or playing Monopoly or playing Snapshot Capture, having a goal with fake adversity builds connection so that then when you really do have adversity, you know how to deal with it. And you're not a bad sport in the game of life, not the board game of life, but in real life. Because you can have a snowball come and hit the wall next to you, and you can turn and be like, "Who threw that snowball?" Right. Or you can be like, "Holy cow, someone just threw a snowball at me," and look around and be like grateful that you didn't get hit, right? And then have the guy say, "I could have hit you if I wanted to," and just be so grateful that you didn't get hit, right? Or have a marshmallow, a little marshmallow mini. Are they minis? They're mini. Or are they? Because I remember all right. Fly above you and be like, "What?" And then look over and see, a bunch of guys, and be like, "Huh?" And then smile and then get peppered with marshmallows. Yeah. What a story to tell later. And if you can have good sportsmanship and good reactions in play, then when life hits you with non-artificial adversity and non-made up things, now you can handle life a lot better because you've practiced in play. So there's real honest to goodness reasons to play with your family, with your friends. And I read an article, I started reading an article, I can't find it, but it essentially said connecting with friends, or it said catching up with friends is not enough. You need to connect with your friends through play. And I was like, that's so interesting. Now, it could be that it's on my radar because we're about to release this app, but I do believe I do believe that play is required for healthy mental status. And if you can play young and learn how to handle adversity and to handle when you lose and handle when you win, then when life throws real adversity at you, it's the same thing. You have to deal with the consequences of winning or losing or overcoming adversity.
The
Sorry for
No,
that
I love
rant.
it because the thing that really jumped out at me that you said is good sportsmanship in life, right?
Yeah.
And I really love that because the reason I love it is because we're surrounded. I saw a quote one time. It said, "Bitter people live in an angry, hostile world. Happy
Mm,
people live in a loving, caring world." Same world, right?
right.
And it when I saw that quote, it obviously I believe I live in a happy, caring world, right? And I consider myself to
Yeah.
be pretty happy, but it's 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 easy, and you see it all around us. The bitterness and the selfishness and the anger, right, is permeates a lot, right? And it can suck you
Hmm.
in, right? And when it sucks you in, it does that because you don't have good sportsmanship in life, right? You're bitter or angry or discouraged over getting, somebody cutting you off on the freeway, or not getting a spot at
Yeah.
Walmart, or like these are simple, stupid things, but they will impact people in harsh ways, right? And people will almost see them as stacking, right? Well, first somebody cut me off on my way to Walmart. Then, there was 74 handicap spots in front of Walmart. And nobody was parked in them. I had to park halfway out in the parking lot. And then my wheel on my cart was squeaky. And then the cashier was rude to me. I mean, it just stacks, right? It's really
Yeah.
almost as if they haven't played games, right? And seen and created good sportsmanship, right? Or learn to accept when they're the butt of the joke, right? Or they're
Mm,
right. And I think it's an important thing for kids and us too to learn, right? My kids have gone to school and they've been called names by kids, right? I heard about
yep.
it, not generally from my kids, because they don't care, because I goof with my kids all the time too. What are you, a peanut head?
Sure.
I mean, it's not like they know that it doesn't mean anything, right? I'm goofing with them. I'm having fun with them. They're learning. This doesn't really matter. It's just silliness, right? It's playful. When they get
Hmm.
attacked by other kids, it doesn't devastate them because they realize
Yeah.
what it is, right? And I also, something I'll share that I thought was super powerful. I saw it probably a couple of months ago. It said, and it was a director in Hollywood talking about movies, and he said, the hero and the villain both have the same backstory, right? The hero and the villain both are beaten up by life as kids, or they experience tragedy, or they face huge challenges, right? He says the difference
Yeah.
is the hero comes out of that and says, I don't want this to ever happen to anybody else ever again. So I'm going to make it my goal to add joy to people's lives and help people, right? And the villain comes out and says, I'm going to get back at the world because I've suffered, right? Both have suffered.
Yeah.
Both have faced difficult circumstances. One becomes a hero because of the way they view how they're going to approach it. The other becomes a villain, right? And it was really powerful to think about how, we've all faced tragedy. We all will, right? How can we
Hmm.
make these kids or help these kids and help ourselves to realize that tragedy and difficulty is part of life? How can we create the levity that's needed, right? Through play, through connection, so that when they come out the other side, they say,
Mm,
these scars are where the world tried to beat me up and failed. Right? This one here, and this
yeah.
wrinkle, and this pain line, and this right? These are all badges of honor, right? Where the world tried to beat the crap out of me and it failed. And it leaves scars, right? But it also, it turns you into somebody that you can be, a better version of yourself who's willing to help and lift other people. And that starts in our family, right? How can we do that in our
Yeah.
family? So I like that. I like your approach to stoicism being, you almost have to, though. It can't happen by accident, right, Cameron? I mean, you can't sit back and say,
No, if you're naturally stoic, you have to choose to engage in the same way that with Tina, when Tina makes a suggestion, I'm like, yes, that is not my natural tendency. My natural tendency is to be no. But when Tina makes a suggestion, I say yes. When Kyle makes a suggestion, I say yes. Here's a gem that I heard when we first got married, and it was, husbands, look for opportunities to say yes to your wife. Wives, look for opportunities to say yes to your husband. Now, what's funny about that is they mean different things to different people. And I had someone tell me, I don't think they should be talking about sex like that. I was like, what? What? Okay, so that's your focus? That's what you're,
right,
wow, okay. I took it for everything else, but that works
yeah,
too. Look for opportunities to say yes. In the same way to life, when there's opportunities, look for the opportunities to say yes.
right,
And that has served me really well in my marriage. And I'm teaching my kids that we can't always say yes, but we can look for the opportunity. And even if we don't do it in the same way that you tell the stories or think about it, you might not do it, but you look for the opportunity to say yes or to engage and to have fun. And for a stoic person, look for opportunity to say yes, sign up for games, go to snapshotplay.com. Hopefully by the time we air this video, it'll be ready for
gotcha,
you. But go there and download the game and play. Get creative in how you play. Exercise some mind stuff, and it will naturally create bonding moments, stories to share that you'll be able to relive with your family or your friends for years to come.
right,
So, one other story, Tina, right? She's the one who convinces us to do fun things. She's like, why don't we go, what is it, where you stand on a board and you paddle standing up?
is it
Do you know what that's
paddleboarding?
called?
I've never done it, but
Yeah. Yeah. So Tina's like, hey, do you and Sarah want to go paddleboarding? And I'm like, yes. I don't want to. That's my natural thing, but yes,
right,
yes. And so we go on the nicest drive trying to find the place we're going to go paddleboarding. That was fun. Then we go paddleboarding, and I just had a head injury where I'd been practicing balancing without being on a board holding a paddle,
right,
right? I stand up and I'm like as shaky as you can imagine. And everyone else is doing this. And then I look over at my buddy Aaron, who's going, and I watched him do the most beautiful fall. Like all of a sudden he's like looking like a champ, right? All of a sudden his feet are in the air. He lands on his back on the board and then rolls off. And I'm like, how did that happen? That's so funny. Next thing I know, I'm in the
right.
water. That was fun. Would we have been able to do that if I hadn't looked for the opportunity to say yes? No. Tina invites fun. She invites everybody and encourages people to have fun. And if you find someone in life that does that for you, say yes. Look for opportunities to say yes, because you'll have far more adventures to rely on when real hardship and real tragedy happens, instead of this made up. Because is doing paddleboard a challenge? Yes, doing paddleboard's a challenge. But if you can understand that when you fall on a paddleboard and you struggle to get up, it really doesn't
Right.
matter. Maybe when your kid breaks their back, the third kid breaks their back, maybe you can have the reaction that my daughter Rachel had, which was to just start laughing because you recognize, you know what? This is just falling on a paddleboard again. And that play, that saying yes to made up adventures, will help you when the real adventures of life hit you hard.
You know, I think I like saying yes is huge, right? And I think I would suggest that most of maybe the little success I've had in life has been because I've just said yes, right? Or I've got my action taker t-shirt on right now because
Oh,
I, you know, I agree with you 100%, right? Just let's do this. Either you create it or go participate, right? My kids, they're
yep.
required to do things they don't really like to do sometimes, right? And we all are, especially as adults.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got this attitude that, look, you bring the fun. If they say it's not going to be any fun, then you bring the fun, right? A
Yeah.
couple of months ago, it's probably been more than a couple of months ago now. A friend of mine said, "Hey, I struggle with. I've had some knee injuries, and the older you get, the more injuries you get that you don't even know how you got them, right?" And I was struggling with a shoulder that was giving me some problems, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, have you ever tried taking an ice bath?" And I thought, man, I hate cold water. That's the worst, you know? And he said, well, if you can handle it for, you know, 2 minutes, if you can slide down in a bucket of ice for 2 minutes, I promise you it'll change you, you know?
Yeah,
And I thought,
it will.
yeah. And I thought, you know what? Yes. I said, you know what? Yes, I'm going to try it. And so I thought,
Yeah.
there's a couple ways I can do this. This is the leverage. We talked about leverage a while back, right? How can I get the most
Oh,
out of
yeah.
this? How can I get the most out
Get
of
the most out of
it?
it.
And how can I give the
Yeah.
most? Well, I told my kids, I said, hey, I'm going to do this ice bath. You guys want to come watch or do it with me? They're like, watch? Yes. They knew
Yeah.
it was going to be a colossal failure. And
Uh-huh.
and so one Sunday afternoon had all the kids come over and I slid down into the ice bath and a couple of them videoed it and they said I made some noises they had never heard come out of me. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And one of my other sons got in and my daughter did too. And I probably do them once a week now because it does have a
Okay.
lot of anti-inflammatory. It helps me. It rejuvenates me. It makes me feel better.
Cool.
Yeah, I really enjoy them now. But that first time was a colossal mess. But I realized, if I'm going to do this, first of all, I would probably back out if they didn't come, right? Because it sounds
Yeah.
unappealing. Or I would slide in,
It
I'd,
does. Sounds
I'd put one
horrible.
toe in and then get out, you know. But if they show up, tell them I'm going
Yeah.
to do it, I'm going to do it. It's the same
You're
yes,
gonna get all the way in.
right?
Yeah.
That's what it was for me, saying yes. And it's going to help me do it. And they're probably going to enjoy the lunacy that occurs. And they did.
Yep.
They enjoyed the lunacy, right? But we all ended up, I mean, probably four out of eight, 4 out of all of us did it. And I have continued to do it because
Wow.
it helps me. I feel like it helps me, right? But the idea that
Yeah.
say yes to things, you know? And I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that can hold us back from saying yes to things sometimes is kind of fear of the unknown or right? Or it sounds like work. And maybe we'll talk about hop up and hustle in a future episode.
Oh,
Yeah.
let's
Okay.
do. I love
Because
that. Yeah.
that's one of those things that I don't care if it's work. I've gotten to a point now where nothing's more important than my family, right? If I'm not willing to work for
Mm-hmm.
them, what am I doing? What am I even doing?
Yeah.
Right? So why not make that a priority? If you're a stoic individual and you think that sounds like a lot of work, what really matters, in your life to you that is so much more important than your family, than creating. I read a scripture one time and I'm going to get this wrong. And it said, We spend the most time with our we spend the time with our treasures. I'm getting it wrong,
Hmm.
right? But you probably
Yeah.
know the scripture, and if it's on my phone, I could probably look it up. Maybe I should. Let me.
Where your heart is, there your treasure is
Yeah,
also.
you got it right. But that really stuck with me because I thought, where should you? Where are your treasures? What are your treasures in life? And that is actually where
Yeah.
we should be focusing our energy on our work, right? So here we go. I'll give you the scripture, and maybe you can pull it up. Um,
Matthew 6:21.
what is it?
Matthew
Matthew
6:21.
6:21. Luke 12:34. Luke 12:34.
Okay.
For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Right? And the whole
Cool.
point of think of all the things we're talking about in connection with this, Cameron, is if we love our family. I hear a lot of one of the things that bothers me, okay, is when people say, I'd go to the moon and back for my kids, right? I hear this all the time. It annoys the crap out of me because many people won't play a game with their kids, but they'd go to the moon and their kids.
Yep.
Shut the crap up about going to the moon and back with your kids. Well, why don't you spend some time with them? Stop with the go to the moon and don't wear a t-shirt that says that crap. Wear a t-shirt that says I played a card game with my kid this week. Wear a t-shirt that says I took my
Yep.
kids out for ice cream and we threw it at each other. Wear a t-shirt that says, we took googly eyes and stuck them on all the faces at Walmart. Right? Wear those t-shirts because that is is the connection. Saying you love your kids,
Yep.
saying you'd go to the moon and back is a bunch of crap to me. You won't even.
Yeah. People would say, I would die for my spouse or I would die for my kids.
Yeah,
Well, how about you
yeah,
live for
yeah. Take some time and thought. And if you're listening to this, you're probably one of those people that is gonna thinks about this anyway. Oh, we're probably preaching to the choir here,
it?
right?
Yeah.
And so it's okay for me to say,
Yeah.
quit saying that crap. You know what I want to see? I want to see you say, I took my kids and did this week. And it wasn't easy and I didn't want to do it, but I did it. And we had fun. That's what I want to see, right? That's what I want to see.
So when I went to my wife's 10-year class reunion, and she met this gal, it's all of her friends she went to high school with, and I'm, her trophy husband, to quote
Yeah.
you. And I'm sitting there, and the gal is just bragging and just bragging about her kids, and it was obscene and it was just like, oh my goodness, you know what? I don't know if I can trust you anymore because, if your kids were this great, you wouldn't have to say it. It would just kind of be obvious, That's kind of what was going through my mind. And so I interrupted her, and I felt bad later because it was not the right call. But this is where my mind goes. I actually said, "Oh, you know what? My oldest, she casts a shadow when the sun is shining." And I said it in the same way
You're
she
just
did. She didn't get that it was a
you're just
joke.
picking at her.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be funny because it was like, "Oh my goodness, your kids are amazing." My kids,
Tall.
that's right. Except that this time they weren't, right? They were just 9 years old at the time. So I'm all, my kid casts a shadow when the sun shines. And I thought it was funny. And she's like, oh, total
Total
confusion.
confusion.
And I was like, oh, shoot. And see, that is why I come off more stoic, because if I joke like that sarcasm, here's another example. I had a leader in our church. Um, I was just expressing how much I enjoy sarcasm from the youth, and the some you get into a youth group where they're sarcastic and it's fun, and you're talking about the scriptures, and you ask what your favorite scripture is, and they quote the shortest ones they can find,
Right.
like "And my father dwelt in a tent," or
Yeah.
"Jesus wept," or the really short
Or they
ones, and I just enjoy that
quote
because
from the good book of Cornelius or something like that. That's
yes, they use a Star Wars quote on accident, but it's not.
If you feed a man,
But anyway, and he's like, he says, and once again, my position at the time, I was an executive secretary, and they, he's all, well, you realize that sarcasm is the lowest form of wit. And I just shot right back at him. I was like, well, you realize he was being sarcastic, and totally didn't get it.
yeah.
I was like, oh. So, you know what? I love this conversation, and I want to cut it out early because I think we've hit on some good things. Is there any questions you want to answer before we end? Anything that you're like, there's one more thing?
I don't think I would like to reiterate what you said earlier, though. I think that was, of all the things that came out of this conversation, the idea that you can have good sportsmanship in life because you've played, right? Or because you've teased or goofed or had playfulness in your life is so powerful, right? There are people that walk around unhappy. And it's almost, you wonder, I'm an amateur psychologist, and I wonder, is it just an event today? Or is this person generally unhappy in life, And if it's generally unhappy in life, you wonder, have they experienced something so bad that there's no coming back? Right? I mean, because everybody experiences tragedy, right? We all face it. Life is going to beat the crap out of you. It's going to try.
Yeah.
And I think the idea that you can have good by playing games and by being playful and by seeing things in a playful way, right? In a spirit of levity, in a lot of cases, you can develop a sportsmanship in life that can absolutely carry you through the trials and the tragedies, right? If you don't play and you don't learn that, there's a risk that the bitterness may be what you become, right? And it's really, there's a lot of it out there, right? And you see it around you, and sometimes you even try to help them out of it, but some people don't want to be helped, right? They don't want to come out of it. And I think it all starts with, like you said, is learning sportsmanship through things that don't matter so much, right? That are playful, that are silly, that are happy, that are joyous, that are facing small challenges like they are, right? If you're driving home from work and you get a flat tire, I've heard people say, perfect. This is the perfect time to get a flat tire. And I've said to myself, you know what? This actually is the perfect time to get a flat tire. Nothing is pressing. You got time to pull over and fix it. This is a good time for things to happen, right? Sometimes it's a good time for bad things to happen. That's the best time to handle it, I've also heard people say, with my luck, this is going to go horribly wrong. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I tell my kids, we got the greatest luck of all. With our luck, things are going to go right. When things do go wrong, they go wrong, we handle them, right? But with our luck, look at what we got, right? I mean, let's count our blessings and find the joy in what we're doing. And it all comes back to what you said is finding connection with your kids through simple things, through playfulness and play, and letting them know that not everything is serious. Not everything is the end of the world, right? And
most things aren't. I haven't hit the end of the world where my wife tells me the Job thing, where it's curse God and die.
One of my favorite scriptures.
Yeah. Mine too, because you know how bad that had to be, where she's like, you know what? I want you gone out of mortality, and I need you to curse God so that I don't end up with you for eternity either. So in the mortality and finish it for eternity. Curse God and die. That's how I picture it, right? She's just so frustrated with her husband who's going through everything, boils and sitting on an ash heap. Oh,
Everything goes wrong. Everything goes wrong. Yeah. And
yes.
she's as supportive as she can be in that statement. You know what I'm saying? You know what? All right, Job. I think the best course of action right here is to curse God and die.
Yeah. That's the best I got. That's all I got. That's all
That's
that's
all I
left.
got, Job.
You've tried the stoicism,
Maybe if you curse God and die, I can
you
start
know.
over somewhere over here because you are a bad situation, bro. You're caught. I don't know what else to tell
That's
you.
right.
You know, what's going on over there? I got to start over here, Job.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, it's so wrong and
It's
funny.
so great though. I mean, you know, if you, because it is, right? No, again, we're all going to go through it, right? We're all going to go
Yep.
through it. How do we help each other? How do we teach our kids? How do we connect with other individuals? You and I have faced stuff where we've gone to each other, right? You faced stuff where
Yep.
you've come to me and we've talked about stuff, right? And I've come to you and we've talked
Yeah.
stuff. And I've come to you with tears in my eyes, you know, and my
Hmm.
connection with you has been right. We're here to save each other, to help each other, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of that is just having a kind of connection where we can talk and creating that.
And I think that's probably a key piece right
Yeah.
there. I was able to come to you when I was dealing with the mental health challenges of my wife, which it was the health issues combined with the mental health issues. What I was overwhelmed. And because I had a connection with you through play and through playfulness, then when life threw me a curveball, that it's so interesting how all of our sayings about dealing with adversity and challenges in life come from sports and play. But when I got that, I could go to you and have a serious conversation where I knew it wasn't going to destroy me as a person. It wasn't going to get worse because I addressed it and talked about it. You had insights that were very helpful at the time, but also then the next time we got together, it wasn't, oh boy,
Right.
how's it going? It was, hey, neither regions, whatever it was play and joyful. So dealing with life, yeah, it stinks sometimes to have things go wrong. But, and you know what? I realized that for the past 6 months before I got into this car accident, I was not joyful.
Mhm.
I was kind of a sour face. I had a resting sour face. And it was just like, people would be like, how's it going? And I'm like, you don't want to know, you know? And then I was like, what's up with that? That's not happy. That's not joy. And if we're supposed to be here in mortality to discover how to be joyful, and if you think about it, do you want to be around people who are poor sports, or do you want to be around people who are good sports and can give you a tip of the hat when you do something excellent, and recognize that, yeah, that didn't go well otherwise? That's what you want. You want to be around other people who are good sportsmen in life as well. So you should be that person, attract people, have joy, and recognize adversity, whether it's made up through play and games, snapshotplay.com, or if it's just the fact that life's hitting you, they're all opportunities to create memories and form new connections and strengthen the connections you already
Right.
have. Don't let the tragedy of life or a bad turn of events and gameplay ruin relationships. That's on you if you do.
Right.
So anyway,
Yeah. Let me, you just prompted a thought for me. And I'll close what I have to say on this is I've learned through facing some pretty heavy stuff that for me, when I'm frustrated or angry or discouraged, when I'm in those bitter states, it's exhausting. You are
yeah,
worn out, you are beat up, you are torn down. Those emotions bring with them exhaustion. There's no way
yeah,
to be buoyant in those situations, right? Now, you can face the same situation. And if you face it in a spirit of love and you say, you know what, I faced some tough stuff before, I'll face this too. I, I'm going to endure well. It's uplifting. You can face those things and it's not exhausting. You have energy. It almost for me, my son is going through my more severe son on the spectrum has been going through something for a while now. And I'm energized, right? Because I'm approaching it. And even if he goes through it until I die, right? I don't care. I'm going to
Yeah.
go through it with this approach, face it in a spirit of love, try to do what's right, and try to find the joy in it. Not just find the joy in it, but understand it's helping me grow and helping him grow, right? And what it does is it gives
Right.
me facing the same battles and being frustrated and overwhelmed and angry, it exhausts you. But when you face those battles in the spirit of love and you say, you know what? This is part of the deal, right? I'm going to have a great story on the other side
Yeah.
of life. This will be a great story.
Yep.
When you look at it with that approach, then it gives you energy, right? And energy is what we need. Connection and energy is what we need to survive, right? It people see that in us, right? And that's what we want.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. And so I think great conversation. I've always been curious about stoicism because I'm a goofball, but I know they
Yeah.
have, everybody has that ability to connect. It's just hard for me to imagine. My
Hmm.
connection is always on a goofy level, at least initially, right?
Sure.
But, and I can usually draw out if there is any goofy in you, I'll kind of find it eventually. But
Yeah. It's
yeah, it's
great.
interesting to me. I know there's different personality types, and hopefully, again, a disclaimer to this whole thing. If our dark humor or some of the things we've said have offended you, please understand this whole thing is done in a spirit of love. We really want to be helpful. We're not trying to offend or upset.
Yeah.
We have our own types of humor, and if those are offensive to you, please forgive us. That's not our intention at all. So,
We'll get better. Sorry.
no, probably not.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Maybe not.
We're not.
All
All
right.
right, Cameron.
It's worth it. We'll talk
All
to you
right,
later.
Cameron. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.